is a special meeting of standards and assessment. And for those who are joining us from the public, we're going to be reviewing humanities and meteorology today. And we appreciate those who have helped us to prepare for this meeting. We're going to continue to function in a relaxed Robert's Rules of Order environment as we did in our last meeting. And I'll be conducting the meeting from sunny California, where I'm visiting my daughter. And I imagine that many of you are in a number of different locations. So it's good to come together and spend some time trying to focus on what's best for Utah's children. Let's begin. Are there any questions about our procedure for today?
I just want to know, we can access the live document, right? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm able to follow along as we're going. So.
Yep. We have the template in front of us with the amendments in this third column or the middle column there that says proposed amendments. So we're on humanities, and we'd invite a motion or an amendment.
I'd like to make a motion. I'm not seeing mine on there. Yes, so this is it, to amend the introduction and to read the humanities studies, the history, literature, language, philosophy, religion. Fine arts. Where is the fine arts on there? I think the fine arts is missing in how that got copied over. So should say the humanities studies the history of literature, language, philosophy, religion, fine arts, and performing arts as academic disciplines and integrated aspects of human society and culture. Students will understand and analyze the historical significance of the humanities and their resulting works in terms of the development of ideas, customs, and social behaviors of particular peoples or society. The humanities are often characterized by enduring and exemplary works that are singular in nature, possess aesthetic merit, and continue to inspire creative expression and consequential thought.
All right, would you like to speak to that?
I just felt like it was a more simplified but comprehensive explanation of what the humanities are.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
I do, but I don't know if Jenny does because she had her hand up first.
Oh,
I
For
guess,
some reason, I'm not seeing the hands. Let me see if I can figure out.
Yeah.
Oh, I see where we are. Okay. I'm just getting the hang of my screen here. So let's go with Jenny.
yeah, I have gone over these several times, spoken to a number of people about the humanities. One of the original changes I had was focusing more on the history of those items instead of the items themselves in a historical kind of context. I actually like to make a substitute motion.
Go ahead.
And I would like to leave the introduction the way it is, striking, and I didn't actually strike it here, I just highlighted it, striking contemporary, and so it is focusing on history, literature, language, philosophy, visual arts, theater, dance, and music to answer the enduring questions about humanity. And for me, the key thing is the enduring questions about humanity, which includes history, it includes theater, it includes language, philosophy, visual arts, But I just, the way I had originally worded it took out the idea that it was only focused on the history of those instead of the items in history. And so I think the rewording of it is a more accurate representation of the humanities as we see it. I'm taking out contemporary, and the reason for that is that we're looking at enduring questions about humanity, and enduring questions have historical, meaning that there's some background to it. It's not just something that's happening right now. There is enough from history on humanities that we don't have to get into the contemporary aspects of that. That can be for college or other areas, but in a high school setting, I believe that's the direction where we should be sitting.
Sarah.
That actually was my question. I from looking at these and talking to folks and reading through the notes, is that humanities is not just historical context. It's also current day studies of human nature. And so that was what I was going to ask about Member Klein's comment, is just why we added that addition and we're so specific about history, because as I know it, and maybe Naomi or whoever's the staff member on this can comment, but I like the new amendment, the substitute motion by Member Earl, much better. So that answered my question.
Okay. I have a question. I taught in the arts, of course, for many years. And one of the biggest challenges I found as an arts educator was that many educators were steeped in history and tradition, all of which was extremely valuable, but they were not open to what the students were dealing with right now in terms of performing arts. And I felt that it was beneficial to be exploring some of the contemporary performing arts with my students, so that they didn't have to face it and deal with it alone. And I know I was working at a collegiate level, but I also spent many months and years in high schools working with high school age students. And so I resonate with both contemporary and those enduring historical questions. And I appreciated the opportunity to be able to be a part of the students' lives, exploring what they and their children and grandchildren are going to be dealing with as it continues to evolve in the 21st century. So that's why I was wondering about striking contemporary. And
I would like to make a comment.
Natalie.
I agree with the enduring questions about humanity. Taking that part out, or the contemporary part out, because this is a study of the history of these things. And with my amendment, I did take out the creative abilities, the critical thinking, the communication skills, because those are really vague and open to interpretation. Whereas what I added to mine gives some more specifics as far as, so teachers know what to focus in on without leaving things so open that opens the door to possibly bringing in things that maybe shouldn't be there, or that take us away from. But so mine is just clarifying what this actually is, what the humanities are and what they're supposed to do. It brings back that, as it also incorporates the aesthetic and what was the other part? Just the aesthetic and the aspirational aspects of the humanities.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right.
Yeah, I do. I would say, I mean, I do think that the creative abilities, the critical thinking and the communication, I don't mind if we add something a little bit more to that, but I do think you're asking him to evaluate and look at exemplary works, which is, I think, what we really should be doing with these works. We're looking at why they are considered part of that enduring question about humanity. So I'm not reading into it the same things that you're reading into it, Board Member Klein. So I'm trying to see if there's, yeah.
Well, I haven't taken that out. I've kept that in. Enduring and exemplary works that are singular in nature, possess aesthetic merit, and continue to inspire creative expression and consequential thought.
All right, thank you. Emily. I think you're muted.
There we go. Thank you. I was stuck here. About the contemporary, I can see where that is significant for students to apply that to their life right now. And I think if there is a connection between now and yesteryear, I definitely think that helps the cause of getting students engaged. On that note, I'm wondering if the last part of Member Klein's addresses that when it says, and continue to inspire creative expression and consequential thought. So it's worded different, but it does touch on the reality that all of these things that have happened applied to what we're learning today in the classroom can continue to inspire your creative expression and your consequential thought. So I'm inclined, you can clarify that if you'd like. For me, I'm just trying to see if the contemporary could be addressed, and for me, I felt like it could come in at that part of that. So thank you.
Thank you. Sarah.
I do have a question. What does consequential thought mean, and how are we going to like assess that or review that?
So a consequence that has social significance, things that, again, these things that have happened throughout history in all of these different areas that the humanities cover, how the reason that we study them is because they have had consequence. They are consequential in nature. They've changed the way we view things and in the world, and they inspire. That's what I mean by consequential. They have left such an impact that we are still thinking about them and studying them and are still intrigued and inspired by them after all of this time.
I guess I understand what you're saying. I interpreted that differently, so I'm just wondering how it'll be interpreted in the curriculum writing, as well as I think it's important that, like I said earlier, to keep in that that it not focus primarily on the historic feature of humanities. Is an example is that last week I went to an event at the college that was put on by a humanities class for their general education credit, and it was all of the stories of immigrants. So a bunch of immigrant students were telling their stories and sharing their art and music and food and culture. And that's there is history there, but it's also cultural to the present day as well. So
I guess I'm curious of how you interpreted it. Consequential thinking is, and then I also would like to understand how, because there's a lot of focus on multiculturalism in the schools right now. That speaks to a lot of the current variations in cultures. But humanities has always been specific to looking back over different time periods and different cultures and throughout the world. Humanities is historical, a historical perspective instead of a modern day perspective.
The first part is I read consequential thought. My interpretation was actually decisions or thought processes that had a negative effect. So there was consequence to it. That's how I interpreted it. And I had never used that term before. But any humanities educator, I don't think would agree that it's only about, this isn't a history class, it's ELA. It's humanities is not the study of the past. It's humans and of today and yesterday. And I Naomi, am I accurate on that? I don't know.
Well,
Is Naomi here to talk about that? I mean, I'd like some clarification, and maybe the writing committee has thoughts on it as well, because I know your amendments didn't get to be seen by the writing committee. So
well, I'm just looking at what the standards that the writing committee wrote, and they say again and again, culture, place, and time periods. So it does have that historical aspect to it, even the way that the writing committee wrote it. Like it's throughout
I have
time.
a comment, Naomi.
I do. Thank you. Naomi Watkins, secondary ELA specialist. And I will say the writing committee had this very conversation talking about what is humanities and the scope of this class. And they were very interested in making sure that that spanned from past to present, that kids will be able, because the humanities is still a living thing even today. I sit on the humanities team with my history, foreign world language and art, colleagues. And so they wanted to make sure that students saw it as a living and breathing thing, that people are creating works now that will become these, what are being called exemplary works and artifacts for the future too, that we're wrestling with what it means to be human now. And it's not just something that happened in the past.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
All right. So
I'd like to make an amendment to mine that kind of articulates that. Hopefully it doesn't take away. So at the very end where it says, let me get down on my notes here. So it says students will develop their creative abilities and critical thinking and communication skills through evaluating and analyzing exemplary works and artifacts as a means of inspiring continued expressions in answering these questions. Did we have a quick typo? Should I do that again? As a means of inspiring continued expressions. You can take off.
Are we?
In answering these questions.
okay.
So I have a question. Are we asking the students to answer these questions or just explore the questions? And are we expecting them to be able to answer these questions for previous time periods and different cultures that lived in very different contexts than ourselves? Are we assuming that we know what the answers are for those people that lived in different times and places?
I think the question it's referring to is enduring questions about humanity. So it is those enduring features that continue, and
So-
we're hoping to continue.
So if by putting this in this, are we asking that this will be assessed, that them being able to answer these questions is going to be assessed?
I don't know, Naomi, it was answering questions before. Is that similar to what, I mean, and this is the introduction, but is this? Oh, I guess Jennifer has her hand up if she has a thought on that.
Jennifer, please go ahead.
Thank you. Jennifer Thronson, Director of Teaching and Learning. Dr. Watkins may have an answer, but for that one, humanities is not a state assessed course, so assessments would be up to the local education teacher to determine what they would be assessing and what that would look like. We don't actually dictate assessments for these individual courses.
All right, great. So are we ready to vote on Jenny's?
I would just make one final comment before we vote on this. What I put forward is just common sense. It just makes it just clarifies, it brings out so much more richness into what we're looking at and what teachers can discuss. It really is, in my mind, a no-brainer as far as how helpful it would be to a humanities teacher to be given this kind of specificity, but also breadth in order to be able to really have a rich experience in the humanities for their students.
All right, thank you. So seeing no other discussion, let's vote. It's in front of you right now in the middle of your screen.
So we would let me just be clear, we're only voting on amendment to my substitute motion, right? Patty? Yes.
Right now, as stated, the committee would be voting on striking contemporary and adding in the words in blue as a means of inspiring continued expression. So right now, the committee would be voting on those two things.
Please vote.
That motion passes 4-1 with Member Klein opposed.
Okay,
I have a motion
thank you.
on strand 1. I would amend it to read strand 1, human nature. Students will explore the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, and spiritual aspects of human nature, period.
So Member Klein, I'm trying to see what you changed. Would you mind just articulating the actual change? Is it just humankind to human nature?
Well, you can see what I struck out in the red there, but
What it means to be human throughout time by studying the physical, social, aesthetic, and spiritual aspects of humankind.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, let's vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with Member Klein and Member Earl in favor.
Thank you.
All right, I have another
I'd like-
motion.
I'd like to make a motion on that one before we move on.
Okay,
I would like to just strike instead of humankind, just human nature. So
Okay, so I'm sorry, what are you doing?
instead of humankind, it just says human nature. It would just be the change there from humankind to human nature.
Got that? Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please.
Hang on a second.
Okay,
I would amend her motion by striking, let's see, nature. Or just adding in students will explore let's see. Okay, students will study the physical, social, aesthetics, and spiritual aspects of humankind. But you would say human nature, sorry. Students will explore. Did you get it? Let's see. Students will explore, take that, no, don't put that in there. So it just says students will explore, students will study the physical. So jump down, so you take out that, strike out what's in blue there, or take that out, and take out what it means to be human throughout time by studying. Just take it out down to studying. Right, so it would say students will study the physical, social, aesthetic, and spiritual aspects of human nature.
Give me one moment, because I just wanted to, if I may, Chair. One of the things that we wanted to make sure we captured was last time when there was an amendment to the amendment, it was hard to track because we would change it in time in that square. So we're trying to track the amendments to the amendments. So if you notice, we have the first one up here that failed. Then we had Board Member Earls. And then we have the amendment to the amendment. So if there's an amendment to the amendment, it will go into the far right screen and we'll keep going down until there's a final motion. It's the only way to be able to track the amendments verbatim as they've been asked for, because we've had members ask for each one what those changes were. So we want to be able to track it. So with this one, it's students will, and then we struck out explore the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, and spiritual aspects of human nature. And then period. Okay, so that means then we're striking out everything else.
Right.
I just want to explain that. So I'm just kind of look where I'm highlighting and see if that will help.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not changing the part that she changed to human nature. Like, so I don't know if you want to include, because I'm amending hers, but not that part that she included. I don't know. Maybe it needs to be a separate motion after this one, but because I'm fine with human nature, where she changed humankind to human nature.
okay, great. So we're clear on what it is any questions or concerns before we vote? All right, please vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with Member Klein and Member Green in favor.
All right. So now do we go back to Member Earls? I think. Okay, you have it before you. Discuss this. Please vote.
That motion passes 4-1 with member Klein opposed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a motion for 1.1. I amend it to read, examine how individuals give personal expression to the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, or spiritual aspects of their human nature.
All right. Would you like to speak to that?
Nope.
All right. Any questions or comments?
So I guess my comment, I'm looking at the two. The one is just about the individual. The other is about societies in general and how religions and morals and ethics play out in those societies. I'm concerned that while the individual is important, that we're losing what that reflection is when we're talking the overall impact of humanities, which is a broader narrative. So
it's because I changed some of the order of things in this, I think in the strand, when I made an amendment to the strand, it's just some of that is captured in my next amendment. So we're not losing it. It just got moved to 1.2. And you can see that just below that interrelated aspect.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions before we vote? We're voting on examine how individuals give personal expression to the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, or spiritual aspects of their human nature. Please vote.
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
Okay, next.
I have a motion on 1.2, amending it to read, analyze how the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, or spiritual aspects of human nature are interrelated and manifested in societies. And that the part that is crossed out is again covered later in 3.2.
Okay. Any questions? So it seems that the writing committee's approach was focused on examining works and artifacts as a means of
Right, that's covered in 3.2. So we're not losing that aspect. It's just further down. If you wanted to scroll down to that 3.2, you can see what my amendment is for that. So you have analyzing exemplary works and artifacts as a means of discovering and expressing human ideals within various cultures, places, and time periods. So it was a little bit redundant to have it in both places. So it's just kind of making things more concise and clean.
Okay. Is there a difference between 3.2 and 1.2 from the writing committee's perspective? They are saying the same things.
So I was just trying to make it match what the strand says. And the part that's crossed out matched strand 3 better and didn't really fit here as well. That's my perspective anyway.
Naomi, do you have any comment on those two different ones, the 3.2 2, and 1.2.
I'm trying to pull up the standards so I can look at them cleanly. So give me 1 second.
Of course.
Or if Patty, you have it, that would be even easier.
So 1.2 is the left column there that you see on the screen. And item number 4. Examine exemplary works and artifacts as a means of expressing information, thoughts, and ideals according to culture, place, and time period. Then drop down to 3.2. Okay, and then 3.2. That means of finding and expressing. Okay, let's go back up. Finding and expressing. Okay,
So they are very similar, but because the strand is very different, the application would be different. So it really does matter what's tied to that strand.
right. Yeah, I see that.
And I would also argue that examining and analyzing are not quite the same. Analyzing is a much higher level skill than examining.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any further discussion? If not, let's please vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Green and member Klein in favor.
All right, next.
Motion 1.3, amending it to read, evaluate the historical significance of civilizations that have cultivated the physical, social, aesthetic, moral, and spiritual aspects of human nature. And again, that the part that's crossed out is covered in 3.3.
Okay. Comments or questions? Seeing none, let's vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and Green in favor.
I have a motion for strand 2 to amend it to read, human roles and behaviors. Students will examine how humans have elevated ideas, customs, and social behaviors in society through the cultivation and refinement of literature, language, philosophy, fine arts, and performing arts through history.
Okay,
I don't think it's all, let's see, oh, we're down there. Okay, yes. Wait a minute. Think it's different. Oh, that's member Earl, sorry. Okay.
any questions or comments?
I would like to make a motion to sub,
Okay,
and it would be human roles and behaviors. Students will examine how academic disciplines related to humanities have elevated ideas, customs, and social behaviors in societies.
okay,
It talks, the focus being on the elevated ideas, the customs, and the things that lend themselves to the humanities.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Let's vote.
Okay. That motion fails 3-2 with member Earl and member. I'm sorry,
Sorry, I was a no.
you put them up one more time. Thank you. That motion fails 3-2 with member Earl and member Real in favor.
So we're going back to mine now.
Uh-huh.
Chair,
Yes.
just making sure it was a substitute motion. Would that go back to the original motion then? Yes, because it failed. You're correct. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so we're now on member Klein. Is that it?
Strand 2. Is this strand 2?
Yeah. 2.1.
It should end throughout history.
Go up one.
Number 6.
I think you need to go up. Right there, yes.
Okay, there we go. All right, please vote.
That motion passes 3-2 with member Booth and member Real opposed.
Okay. I have a motion for 2.1. Amending it to read, examine how the innate desire for purpose, meaning, and fulfillment have motivated individuals to create exemplary works that express information, thoughts, and ideals within various cultures, places, and time periods.
Would you like to speak to it?
No.
Okay, any questions?
I would like to make a substitute motion, one that's a little simpler and keeps some of the original language.
Okay, go ahead.
So the substitute motion would be explain how and why reason, rational thought, curiosity, and motivations have led to exemplary works in various cultures, places, and time periods. And I'll just speak to the stricken language, which is change according to. So we're looking at, okay, sorry, I have to read it out loud. Change according to that. It's just that we're looking at works from those places. So from cultures, places, and time periods. And then not just the changing according to. I think it leaves ambiguity.
Okay. And do you feel that makes it easier for curriculum leaders to identify how they're going to teach that strand?
Yes, I believe it does. Because you're looking at various cultures instead of according to cultures, places, and time periods.
Okay.
So I have a question where it says, explain how and why reason, rational thought, curiosity, and motivations. I don't know what it said before that. Have led, anyway, are we trying to assume things about previous peoples and cultures and time periods whose context may have been different than ours as to their reasons and their motivations for why they did certain things by using this wording? I think we have a hard enough time in our own time period and culture.
I think that's
to
why
understand
we're
why
looking at,
people-
yeah.
what their motivations and reasons.
And I think
are.
that's the point of exemplary works, right? And artifacts throughout this narrative is those items that lead to pondering how and why and where rational thought came from, curiosity and those motivations. So I do think
So we're
those
not trying
lead to that.
So we're not trying to figure out what their reason or what their thought or motivations were in creating these artifacts and things. I just think it's
Understand your question. I'm sorry.
I just think it's presumptuous for us to have our students presume that they can understand the reason or thought or motivations behind what led to the creation of these different artifacts and exemplary works when they happened in such different cultures and places and time periods than our own. It's hard enough to understand that with people living in our own day and time in context that we understand somewhat better. But I guess that's part of why I put forward, I rewrote mine the way I did, is because it felt presumptuous for us to assign or even presume that we could figure out their reasons and their motivations.
So that is your, I mean, I'm just clear here
It
that
just-
yours, it does say have motivated individuals. Like we're asking about what motivated them. That presumption would be the same on either amendment. And that's just it, as if
No.
we could understand the purpose and the.
Well, mine, so yours starts out, explain how and why. Mine says examine how the innate desire for purpose, meaning and fulfillment have motivated individuals. Like it's just the human nature element of why anybody would create anything. Why? Because it's just our human nature to search for meaning and purpose. But I can't presume to know why you would create something or why somebody in a previous time period would, beyond just that innate human nature, wanting to express oneself.
All right. Any other further discussion or question? Emily?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right. Everyone, let's vote.
We're voting on Jenny's amendment
That's right.
or the substitute motion. Okay.
Uh-huh.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Earl and Real in favor.
Okay, we're back to member Klein. Any questions or further discussion? Please vote.
Just a moment, I've got to go back to the original strand here to look.
That motion passes 3-2 with member Booth and Real opposed.
I have a motion for 2.2. I amend it to read, examine the societal roles that have contributed to the humanities within various cultures, places, and time periods, such as patrons, performers, critics, artists, writers, philosophers, and academia, salons, social clubs, governments, and religions. I think we can take that extra and out before academia.
Questions? Seeing none, let's vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and Green in favor.
All right, next.
I have a motion to amend 2.3 to read, identify and evaluate how contributions in the humanities have inspired or motivated others and led to subsequent exemplary works, behavior, and expression.
Give me just a minute before we vote, please. I just need to look back through the whole strand here and evaluate where we're at and ask, I might have a couple questions. Naomi, is it possible you can walk me through this strand just so I can understand the thought process behind the strand itself? I'm just trying to understand the subtle differences between each of these, if you don't mind.
Yes, let me try to encapsulate what the writing committee was doing. So we have this, that students will examine how humans explore, discover, think, change, and create throughout history. And so they were also trying to make sure that within each of the strands, they're also mirroring each other in the structure within the standards themselves. I don't know if you've noticed that, what would you call that? Like parallelism between the standards. So in this case, is there a specific one you want me to talk about? Or
Just looking at 2.3 specifically.
So in this case, they were talking about like, what would be the motivations, right, behind exploring, discovering, thinking, changing, and creating throughout history. So I see that's how that's tied to 2.3.
All right, thank you. I'm ready, Randy.
Are we ready? Okay, please vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and Green in favor.
Thank you.
I have a motion to amend strand 3 to read, human ideals. Students will examine the need for discovering and expressing ideals such as truth, love, joy, beauty, dignity, and liberty, within various cultures, places, and time periods.
All right. Any comments or questions?
Just not seeing significant finding and discovering, and then according to or within various. So I guess the according to is similar up above. If we pass the according to up above, then, or if we left it the same, then we probably need to leave it the same. And I don't remember which one it was on. I can look back real quick.
Any other questions? Jennifer,
I was just trying to help out Board Member Earl. It looks like line.
It didn't pass, so it would need to be, it would really need to just stay the same then, because it would be a consistency of language throughout the standards. So I wouldn't be for this motion. It doesn't add greater depth to what's already there. It's pretty much the same. And then to change that, but not change it up above would have been the way to go, but it didn't get changed above, so it would have been inconsistent.
all right, thank you.
I think there's the big difference between according to and within. They're fundamentally different. The one is much, it's just more in depth. We're not, because according to references like dictates of a certain culture instead of just within, the things that you find within. According to insinuates some kind of regulatory state. And that's not what the humanities is about. It's just discovering within those areas, different cultures, places, and time periods, the human expression that is found within.
Right. Any other discussion? If not, please vote.
Mayor?
Yes.
It's
Patty?
not dependent on this vote, but it might be. I just want to make sure we have something clear in it. And may I ask a question of Director Thronson?
Please.
And Director Thronson, if you could help me, I remember there was a large discussion and this committee was a part of the discussion. And that is the difference between parentheticals or EG. And so the EG parentheticals, or if it's listed like such as or listed as, and there was a decision made by the committee that it would remain the same. So it wouldn't impact Board Member Klein, your such as or whatever, but it would say whether or not you have the words outside the parentheticals and have EG meaning an example of, or you would have the other. But I think the committee agreed on a format, and I just wanted to make sure that that was consistent, but I'm not sure where that landed. Director Thronson, can you remember?
Yeah, we're at for example, and then the list. So the word spelled out for example.
That's fine. We can change it to, for example.
We can do those as technical edits in the final draft too, so.
So I would like to make I guess it would be a substitute motion here.
Please.
And it would be that we leave discovering and expressing is already in there, unless I'm wrong. You added expressing, but it's already there. Someone tell me if I'm wrong.
It's already there.
Yeah, so it'd be leaving finding and then leaving and expressing's there, and then whatever it needs to be, such as e.g., for example, whatever we're using there, and then having within various cultures, places, and time periods, and that where according to throughout the document is changed for within various. Otherwise, we're not consistent throughout the document. So the substitute motion would be to replace according to within various cultures, places, and time periods throughout the document.
So
Okay.
I would just speak to the difference between finding and discovering. I think part of human nature is that we like to discover, and finding isn't necessarily, finding sounds like, and we found an object, but discovering is much broader. We can discover all kinds of things that are intangible, as well as discovering tangible things. And so I just think it's more fitting for the humanities. And discovery is intentional. Finding might just be just haphazard.
All right.
So I would amend substitute motion. to,
Please, Patty.
Chair, I don't think I got Earl's
You
all the
did
way
not?
done before we did the amendment. So
okay,
with Vice Chair Earl, I just want to make sure the substitute motion is students will examine the, and human is struck. So it reads, students will examine the need for finding, and then you struck the word discovering. So the need for finding and expressing ideals. And did we want to change that?
I don't think, I didn't have human struck. So
Okay, you didn't have.
I guess yeah, the human need for finding, yep, that if you can take,
For example,
yeah, leave that on. The only thing would be the change within various cultures, places, and time periods, and take
Okay.
off according to.
Okay. So the human need, expressing human ideals, for example, truth, love, joy, beauty, dignity, or liberty within various cultures, places, and time periods. Part 2 is changes according to within various cultures, places, and time periods throughout the document. It's a 2-part motion, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Thank you.
the problem is it's got to be consistent. We've already not voted on it.
Okay, and
It's either got to be one or the other. So
thank you. And Board Member Klein, I apologize. I wanted to get that straight. And so then your amendment to the substitution is?
can I amend a substitute motion? I don't think I
Jenny?
can.
Brian's our,
Is there an earlier amendment that's on the table? So as a substitute, the second tier,
Yeah,
if it is, then you can't amend a substitute.
yeah,
That would be a third amendment.
yeah. That's what I thought. So we
okay,
can vote on Jenny's.
well, let's vote on something and then we can move backwards or whatever we need to do. So we're voting on part of that. You said it was in 2 parts. Part of it was, so should we deal with the within various instead of according to? So anytime that happens in the document, we want to say within various cultures instead of according to various cultures. That's the second part of Jenny's. Is that correct, Jenny?
yes.
So
Okay.
she's also changing by adding human back in instead of having it struck. So does that need to, I guess that's shown just by unstriking it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you
So
could-
I think, but we're just gonna vote for the bottom part of it. Do we have to separate it? Jenny, was that what you were
I
saying?
didn't necessarily divide it out, but someone could certainly divide the motion.
Okay.
I vote to divide.
Okay, great. So we're just doing that last little paragraph that we're gonna say within various cultures, places and time periods. So I guess that place needs to be places.
I think we have to vote on the motion to divide first.
Okay, great. All those in favor to divide, please vote.
Member Green. That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. So now we're going to vote on that last little part. Anytime that it says according to, it's going to now be replaced with within. All right, we ready? Everyone vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Now the front part of that motion from Jenny is, can you read it, Jenny?
I'd love to. Human ideals. Students will examine the human need for finding and discovering, and expressing human ideals, for example, truth, love, joy, beauty, dignity, or liberty then it would read within various cultures, places, and time periods.
Okay. Is that clear with everybody? Please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
I would make a motion on strand 3 to replace finding with discovering for the reasons I spoke of before.
Okay.
I would also strike human. I'm not sure what human ideals are. I mean, and it's at the beginning of the strand anyway. And it's implied. That's just.
Emily.
Yeah, just my thoughts on this is I do like the word discovering a lot better. I do think that it is more broad and more correct. However, I would like to keep human ideals in there. So I don't know if there's a way to divide those two or make a sub to that. Where we keep, so analyze exemplary works and artifacts as a means of discovering and expressing human ideals within various cultures, places, and time periods.
Okay, so that's a substitute motion.
Yeah. That's.
Or a friendly amendment.
I mean, I think we could probably leave it in if we want to vote like just human, because it's in the beginning of the strand. I think I was just taking it out to have it more clean and less wordy since it was already at the beginning. But I mean, we know we're talking about humans here. We're not
Okay,
talking about animals. But if
Good.
we want to leave that in, that's fine too.
all right, let's do that. Is that okay, everybody?
Yep. So that
All right. We're
we
ready to
don't need
vote
the
then?
second motion. Yeah, we can just go with mine.
Yeah, back to Member Klein's.
Okay.
Sorry, I meant Natalie, but I read Member Klein because they just typed that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So hold on, what are we voting on? May I just see clarity?
We're voting
Just-
on that one right there, 3
We're
point.
just
Okay.
replacing finding with discovering.
Okay, everybody vote.
That motion passes 4-1 with member Real opposed.
And then
Right,
I have a
yeah.
motion for 3.1 so that it reads, compare human ideals with various cultures, places, and time periods, striking as defined by different. So it's just replacing it with to be consistent with the others within various cultures, places, and time periods.
Does that cover what we already did above where we changed that unanimously to go with change according to within various cultures, places, time periods?
Yeah, I just wanted
No.
to mention that as well, Andrea, and Chair Booth, may I?
Please.
Sorry, I should have asked to speak.
No,
I
you're good.
apologize.
I have we went through, and as soon as it passed up here, that it passed unanimously for it to be changed throughout. Then if you notice it's already been passed. And so what we can do over to the side is just say passed, so that all of you will be aware that if it's just that singular motion on there, that it will say it's already passed.
So this is a little different because we're not replacing according to, we're replacing as defined by different. So I don't know if you would have caught
Thank you.
it.
Yeah, no, you're right. Thank you.
My apologies.
Okay, so,
Do you think we need to vote on it?
yeah, So shall we vote? Oh, Emily, did you have a comment?
Yeah, actually, this is, I don't know if somebody could elaborate on as defined by. It's something that I had highlighted and just says, is there a way to, that these are defined within humanities? And if there is, could you explain that to us? If not, does within various highlight the nuances that can even exist with same belief systems and within the same cultures and the same places and the same time periods?
Naomi, would you like to?
So in the public comment, it was mentioned that different cultures have like prioritized different ideals in different ways. And so they wanted to have space to be able to have the space for that in the standards. So I believe that's why the committee chose the as defined by, because cultures might have, like I said, different priorities of ideals.
It sounds to me like according to, like it's a dictate. Whereas are human ideals dictated by, say, a government, or are they just innate?
All righty.
I think my personal opinion is that there are cultures that do have specific, I guess, definitions of ways that you should act or traditions that you should carry on specific days for specific reasons. I guess the nuance there is whether every single person aligns to those and how we teach that in the humanities section. So Naomi, if you can elaborate a little bit more on that as well.
May I?
Please.
Up in the strand, it says, for example, truth, love, joy, beauty, dignity, or liberty. So I think those are the human, like examples of the human ideals that we're talking about. So I think those sound more innate to me than as defined by various cultures or time periods.
Thank you.
And has been pointed out here, I do think that there are significant works that actually do define specific cultures and things that they adhere to. So I'm trying to figure out the balance in this as well. And where we do have within in other portions of this, I'm wondering if it is necessary to have the as defined, because there is an establishment of laws that add to the culture and such when it comes to the humanities and things that roll out. So I'm too trying to see the balance in this.
All righty, thank you for that comment. Any other further comments? If not, would you please vote?
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
Okay, I have a motion on 3.2 to amend it to read, analyze exemplary works as a means of discovering and expressing human ideals within various cultures, places, and time periods.
Chair,
Yes,
if I made that one already passed 4-1.
thank you. All right, next,
Did
3.3.
we vote on 3.2? Oh, with everything. Okay, got it. 3.3, it would amend it to read, evaluate the use of form in exemplary works within various cultures, places, and time periods. And we could add to express human ideals to the end. I think it just works better at the end. I just moved that part.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question from, I don't know who was first, I'm sorry. Emily or Jennifer?
Jennifer, you can go ahead.
My question is in response to 3.2. So I'll wait until we're done with this one. And if we can go back to 3.2, it contradicts the introduction now. And so we just need to have some parallel in there.
Thank you for watching that. We'll come back to you. Thank you, Emily.
Yes, I was wondering if we could just discuss the use of elements of form versus the use of form. If that, are we looking at like if they used pottery or paint or marble sculpturing? Is that the type of elements of form that we're discussing? I'll just start with that question.
We also need to edit. It's not quite right on the screen.
Okay.
The to express needs to be moved to the bottom before human ideals.
To express, okay.
So I don't know if Naomi, you might help us with that.
Yes, so that's going to depend on the medium that's being used, right? So if it's a piece of art, then the elements of form are going to be different than if it's a piece of literature. So they went with this broader term, elements of form, then rather than just form, to be more encompassing of the different types of exemplary works and artifacts that they might look at.
So you are in this strand, the goal of this would be to take the time to examine what type of element was used. So you're saying literature, music, stone, is that, am I getting it right or still missing it?
Not quite. So it would be like there's different elements of form based on the discipline that it's coming from. So if it is art, there are particular elements of form that are specific to art or specific to music or specific to literature. So close, but not quite.
Okay. And then I guess Member Klein, can you explain the use of form in how you struck of elements? If you can explain what you kind of highlight in that.
It's just redundant. It's implied regardless of what discipline you're looking at. It fits by just saying use of form. It would apply to any of those different disciplines. It's just excessive wording.
Okay.
I think it breaks it down more. I think you got different forms and then you have elements that build onto that. And so I think it is important to have it in there.
Elements of, is that what you think is important to have in there? I'm just not.
Yes, I think elements and form. I think the two go hand in hand. I think the one breaks it down further. The elements are components of certain forms. So I don't see it as redundant.
Did you want to make an amendment?
Just a moment, let me look. I actually don't have a problem with the language the way it is currently. Evaluate exemplary works and artifacts, use of elements of form to express human ideals according to, within culture, place, and time period. I think it does articulate exactly where we want to go here. I don't see this as it just mixing the words around and removing things, but I do think we do want those exemplary works. We want to be looking at the elements, the components of those that express human ideals. So.
Okay. So Emily, you have a comment?
No, I'm good. Sorry. I'll put my hand
Ready to
in.
vote?
Yes.
This one? Okay, everyone, please vote.
All right. I would like to make a motion that the committee sends the humanities standards as amended, including technical formatting and grammatical changes to the board for approval. Oh, yes, Patty.
We need to go back to
Yeah.
Jennifer's item that she brought up a few minutes
Did
ago.
we need to make the announcement of what the vote was on that last one, please?
Of
On
course.
3.3.
Sorry, I had my mic muted. I apologize. That motion failed 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
Thank you. All right, Jennifer.
Yes, thank you, board chair or committee chair. For this one, we've got discovering in 3.2, but we had left finding in the introduction. So it would be great for just vertical alignment and consistency to choose a term. So right now we voted in one case to not change it, and then we voted in a different case to change it. So it's in, no, scroll down, it's in the introduction section for 3.
So I'll make a motion that we amend 3.2 to strike finding and add discovering.
So 3.2 has discovering. It's the introduction that we left finding.
I thought it got changed in that. Am I wrong?
We left finding. So there it is. So
I put it in my motion, but my motion failed for the introduction.
Oh, okay, okay.
I would say though that it's in the strand as finding still and not discovering. That's probably what you're looking at.
So can we?
I'm confused. So you're saying it didn't get changed or it did get changed?
Fair, may I?
Please go right ahead. Pat.
So, and following through, which is great that we did this new way of doing the substitutes to the substitutes, all of those things over here, because now we can go back to exactly what it was. So if we follow this through, we had member Klein's motion, and then we had a substitute. Within that, we divided the question. You all divided the question. And the final thing was to cross out discovering and the human need for finding, and expressing human ideals. So the last one that passed would be this one right here. Human ideals, students will examine the need for. And then as we get down to 3.2, which is the one that we were just discussing right here, then the word finding and discovering. So are we in alignment or?
I think we're in alignment. Am I wrong in that?
Oh, this one would be discovering, the other one would say finding. So that's the difference. So
But we didn't move 3.2. It never, oh, it does pass, sorry.
sorry, I am just wrote for consistency's sake. We're good.
I thought that one, we didn't actually vote on that. That one had to do with the within various. Am I wrong in saying that?
That was
No, we voted
3.1.
on both parts of it.
Okay, well then we're gonna have to, we do have a discrepancy. I
Okay,
thought we didn't actually vote. I thought we actually went with the vote from before because it had to do with within various. We didn't do a full vote on both of those items. That it was just a carryover from the previous motion. That's okay. We can, let's vote on it. I guess we don't necessarily need to argue it. We can vote one way or the other. So.
Great. Sounds good. Let's vote. Right.
Can you,
According
we're
to
voting on 3.2?
Uh-huh.
or
And the other one is already finding. So do we want it to be discovering or finding? And then let's go to wherever that is and change the one that we want to change.
I think we need a.
would you like to
formal
have, would you
motion.
like for me to have them side by side so you can see the differences?
Natalie, do you know what we're doing?
I am a little bit lost.
Yeah, me too. Okay. So maybe side by side would be just great.
That'd be great. Yeah.
So we're
Sorry.
more or less, we're just deciding whether to use the word finding and using it, duplicating it, or the word discovering and duplicating it in both instances, right? So that it correlates.
And Natalie made the point that she liked discovering when you talked earlier. Did
Mhm.
anybody like finding better? Okay, so the 3.2 is discovering. And
Naomi, Naomi, is there are you seeing a significant reason why? I'm just trying to figure out if finding or discovering or why they use that, or maybe they didn't consider it and it's sixes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think the words are very similar.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so Natalie likes the discovering. Are we good if we voted on whatever that one is on the right? If we change that finding to discovering, then we're consistent. Are we okay with that? If we are, everybody vote.
So are you making the motion, Chair,
Oh,
to amend that to discovering?
yeah, yep, I am. How about
Okay.
that? First motion of the day. Change finding to discovering. And I don't know where that was. It was the one on the right. Right there.
In the
So
strand.
3.2, no?
It's already in 3.2, it's already discovering, so it's just in the strand.
Oh, in the strand, okay.
In the strand. Is that okay?
Yep.
Everybody vote. We're changing finding to discovering. Is what I'm thinking we're doing. If
Okay.
I'm still confused.
No, I
Okay.
think you're right on.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, now can I make the motion?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
I'd
the-
like to make a motion that the committee sends the
and
humanities.
Andrea's gonna
Wait.
first say that that last thing.
Sorry, that motion passes 4-1 with member
sorry.
Ryle opposed, sorry.
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny, sorry.
The committee sends the humanities standards as amended, including technical formatting and grammatical changes to the board for approval.
I would
Alright.
make a substitute motion, a motion to substitute, sorry.
Okay.
3, I would amend 3.3 to read evaluate the use of, wait a minute, did I already do that? Did I already do 3.3?
We did, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I thought I missed one. Okay, never mind.
All right. So we're back to the motion that was made. The final motion, it's in front of you. Please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, great. Do you need a 3-minute break?
Yes, just
Sure.
3 minutes
Okay.
would be great.
Okay, we're having a quick little break and we'll be back in, I don't even know what time it is.
It's 6:28.
Okay, well, it's 5:28 here and the sun is shining. Okay, so let's say it's what, it's 6, so 6,
It's 6:35.
6:35.
Yeah.
See you soon. Okay, are we about back? Who are we missing? See. I see we have Sarah. And we have Emily, Natalie. Here I am, Jenny, we're all here. Patty's back, Andrea's here. Okay,
Randy, before we start on this section, I'm wondering if we can get some clarification from Milo or someone about the differences between or how we are defining, if we have a definition somewhere of climate, and if we have a definition of weather, and if we have a definition of climate change. These are very hot topics when it comes to the general society. And as we're going through this, and we're talking about meteorology, I want to be able to understand the differences between all those different elements, and are those clearly defined for our educators? And if not, how are we going to do that, and what do they mean? So just so that right from the start, I want to understand where we're coming from as you know, the writing committee or as the board, or just so that we're all on the same page, if you don't mind.
all right. Who would like to respond?
Yes, I can do that. Board Member Booth, Milo
Thank you very
Mon.
much.
Yeah, Milo Mon, Secondary Science Education Specialist. So weather would be those local phenomena that we see, like a sunny day, a rainy day, but can even be more extreme to what maybe like a hurricane would be a weather event, a tornado would be a weather event, but there tend to be a little bit more small and local in effect and where they occur at. Climate would be the more general term of more what's happening in a region. And so we kind of like have our temperate climate, which would kind of, or our desert climate, or your jungle rainforest climate. And then may have the same type of weather events in different climates. But it's generally, when we talk about a certain climate, we know that there's going to be maybe an expectation in terms of the amount of rainfall that might be occurring in that climate. So rainfall, and you have generally certain weather you expect to occur. And it's not that certain weather won't occur, but you would expect certain weather to occur. For example, here in Utah, we don't generally expect to have a tornado here because of our mountain climate that we have, or the mountains that give us the climate that we got. It's not that we will never have a tornado, because we have seen tornadoes even here in the Salt Lake Valley. But it's unlikely due to our region and our climate. And then climate change would be that climate that's changing or transitioning over time. And so throughout the geologic history, if we go back to geology, we've seen evidences of that climates in certain region have changed from one type of climate to another, whether it's going from a jungle-like climate to a desert-like climate. And so those changes or shifts in climate would be what we refer to as climate change.
Okay, so do we have that spelled out somewhere? I'm just wondering, because climate change has a very nuanced meaning to it within the general society, right? Within
Very
government
political.
entities. Yeah, very politicized.
Politically charged.
Yeah, so that's,
Totally.
I want to make sure as we're moving forward that we're sticking with what we do know, and that we're helping kids to understand that, but we're also not, we're not going into political things that are charged beyond where our educators, puts them at risk or puts students at risk. So
You want me to respond to that? Like, is there?
Yeah, if you could, how are we doing that?
Can I add just for a moment, if that's okay, Chair Booth? I hate to interrupt. I can see you saying yes. Thank you so much, Director Thronson. So within this one, the weather and climate are both defined in the SEED standards in the approved K-12. So weather is found on page 34 and climate is on 34. I didn't find a definition of climate change. So that might be the place, basically, we're just saying it's a change in climate. So we're taking the reverse order.
Director Thronson, would you mind reading both of those for us?
Sure, it is. So weather is a minute by minute, day by day variation of the atmosphere's condition on a local scale. So that's weather. And then there's a sentence, and then the climate. Climate describes a range of an area's typical weather conditions and the extent to which those conditions vary over a long period of time. So I think we can rely on those definitions if that's okay, just because they're already in the approved standards. Climate change, it's referenced 5 times in the standards, the current standards, but it's never actually defined in the standards from what I can find. Milo, feel free to correct me if that's allowed, but I can't find that actual term defined in our current standards.
Yeah, and I would concur with what you're saying, Director Thomson.
I have a motion if we're ready.
Can I ask one clarifying question first? I'm just referencing the Earth and Space Science, the disciplinary core ideas, which is ESS 3.D, where it talks about the global climate change. And if we had a definition, so could we just apply the definition that stands to that, just to clarify? Just so
Whether or not we define it a certain way does not mean that every resource a teacher uses will use our definition. And so if there are other definitions out there, or it's being used in a political way, then it doesn't matter how we define it, because we're just setting the standard, but they can use any curriculum they want. And that doesn't mean the curriculum will define it the way we do. So it's better, in my opinion, not to have it in there, because it is so politically charged and polarizing.
And Dr. Thronson, what page did you say that was on? I have it here. Did you say page 35?
Page 34. It's the very beginning of that. I think it's kindergarten standard. No, third grade. So 3.1. Strand 3.1, the description of 3.1 defines weather and climate. And I'll try, I don't have the doc, or I would just copy and paste it in there. Milo or Dr. Norman, do you want to send me a link to the doc, and I will add the language just so everyone can see what we currently have.
Sarah, would you like to go?
Yeah, I touched on this last special meeting session, but I've been thinking a lot about what makes climate change so political and so polarizing, because we know that climates change. So is it just the term? Is it based on things that is it based on mining standards? Is it based on car manufacturers? Like what is the polarizing political piece? Because to me, it's like what Milo defined, which is that certain climates, they change. And we know that, we've seen that. And so when a climate changes, that's a change in a weather pattern in a certain area. So to me, the idea that climates change doesn't feel political to me. I understand how it has been made into a political conversation because we're making government regulations about how we are approaching the changes to our climate based on human behavior and change in energy sources and things like that. But this is a class about meteorology, and it's talking about different climates and how they change and how weather patterns change. And I almost feel like removing it actually makes it political. It's made a lot of things political when in this entire conversation and the emails we've been getting, it's made it political. So if we would rather call it changing climate than climate change, that would be something I hope that we could be okay with. But again, it's a class on weather and weather patterns. Patterns of weather are different based on different climates, and therefore there are climates where the weather changes, and that is climate change.
So that's exactly, thank you. That's exactly why I think I wanted to start this conversation, because that is exactly where we want to be, right? Is in that realm. And so I just want us to have the frame of mind as we move through these, that that's where we're going and not into the political nature. So
Okay.
thank you for articulating that. Okay.
I would just like to make a comment in that vein. I think weather and it's implied that it changes. Like, we all know that it's been that way since the beginning of the world. Like, we don't have to say change, because the climate or the weather is always changing. So when they say climate change, they're referring to man-made things that they claim affect the climate, which then becomes a means or a justification for regulating human behavior, so that in ways that violate our liberties and our human rights. And that's where it becomes political and a problem, because there is no consensus on man-made climate change. It is simply being pushed as a way to regulate human behavior and infringe on our inalienable fundamental rights. I just want to read something short from Pew Research, because political fissures on climate issues extend far beyond beliefs about whether climate change is occurring and whether humans are playing a role. According to a new in-depth survey by Pew Research Center, these divisions reach across every dimension of the climate debate, down to people's basic trust in the motivations that drive climate scientists to conduct their research. Specifically, the survey finds wide political divides in views of the potential for devastation to the Earth's ecosystems and what might be done to address any climate impacts. There are also major divides in the way partisans interpret the current scientific discussion over climate, with the political left and right having vastly divergent perceptions of modern scientific consensus, differing levels of trust in the information they get from professional researchers, and different views as to whether it is the quest for knowledge or the quest for professional advancement that drives climate scientists in their work. And that speaks to the political nature of all of this. And so I think we are better to stick with climate or weather being the, if you want to talk, just the physical geography of, weather within a physical area, a geographical area.
I feel like one of my primary freedoms, one of my primary liberties that I like to hang on to is the privilege of using words that I have been using my entire life. I don't want the political world to hold me hostage from using a word that I might choose to use to communicate that the climate's changing, or any other word that has somehow become a political, somebody has, put their name on it and decided this is our political thing. I just object of somebody saying that I cannot say this word when I've been saying it my entire life.
Well,
it's a good word. I don't
That's fine, but you have to be aware. You can't put blinders on to the fact of how it's being used in a broad way to change an entire narrative. Like, people have assigned it different definitions, and so it affects how it's being portrayed in the textbooks or in online modules, and what's being taught. So we can say again.
Can't we use it in the right way?
Well, like I said earlier, we can define it however we want. That doesn't mean that it will be defined that way in the curriculum that teachers choose to use. So we have to be we can't be ignorant of that fact as we put it in here, because what we put in here then allows them or requires them to use curriculum that uses that term, and that term is used in a very specific way. It's in a very loaded term.
Right.
It is for one specific worldview that there is not consensus on both sides, and that's where it becomes.
But could
I
we
understand what
say,
you're saying, but this isn't a policy class. We're not talking about laws and regulations about,
But
forcing.
that's how it's being taught to the
cycle.
kids.
No, this is about weather. This is about how weather changes. And we
It's
know,
not.
okay, well, you're making it political by pulling out.
I'm just acknowledging what's
your
out
view.
there.
Right. And I'm telling you that this is about weather, and we know that humans impact weather. We've seen
Humans
it
don't impact weather.
according to you.
Exactly, and that's why we have to leave it out, because there is
Right,
that
but
huge.
the way that you have amended these is making it more political because you are purposefully only showing your side.
No, I'm taking point of order. You're making judgments again about my motivations. I will tell you, the only thing I'm doing is trying to keep it neutral and to take
Okay.
out the
I think we could probably,
focus on weather, and we're safe.
people have shared their thoughts, so, and
Good,
this is
thank you.
this is a hot item, so I think we can move forward as long as I just think being aware of the different constraints, so.
all right, thank you very much.
I have a
We're ready to
motion
go.
if you're ready.
Please.
Okay, so I move to amend the introduction to read with the strikeouts that you see there. I will read it as it would read. The meteorology high school supplemental seat standards explore the energy and matter of the atmosphere and formation of weather patterns. Students analyze and interpret data to determine the structure and function of the atmosphere. Students develop and use models to assist them in weather analysis and forecasting.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
Just a statement, the very last line that's stricken, students analyze and interpret data to help them communicate the system interactions that occur between society and the climate. I just have a question on that. Is the climate what we want there, or do we want weathering or changing in climate?
Well, I've strucken that part out.
I know you
Into
have, and I
part of the
don't
rest.
think I think that to say that we don't interact with our climate around us isn't true. We're doing it right
The-
now. In my
The
community,
weather
we're doing
acts
it.
upon us. We don't interact with our weather. It just happens to us. So is that what you're referring to as an
Nope,
interaction?
I'm saying we engage and interact as society with well, right now we have sandbags going up based on different
Okay,
climate.
so we're
We live in a
reacting to
desert.
the weather,
We have water coming
not-
down. We have mountainous areas.
but we're not interacting with weather. We're just reacting to it. It's happening to us and we are responding. And that's different than interacting with weather as if what we do can change the weather.
There are like deforestation can change weather patterns. If we adjust a climate or the earth in some way, it can change it. There's loads of evidence that humans have affected our air, our water. I sent a lot of examples of how humans have interacted and reacted.
So we can plant lots more trees and things and that can have a minor impact, but that's environmental. It's not like the weather is going to happen.
I just listened to
And we
experts.
can't change the weather unless
I'm
we're
not
talking.
sure. I didn't know you had an environmental science degree.
Oh, and I know I'm a woman, even though I'm not a biologist.
Okay, wait, we need to, if we can bring this back, please. I was saying this earlier, if we want to be on the campaign trail, please bring the insults there. Please, let's keep this to the standards. If I can bring this back, I respect each of you as board members that have been duly elected, and the research and opinions that you bring, the conversation that you bring, and I ask that we just please hold decorum.
I apologize.
Thank you. As far as people impacting weather, we do. The Dust Bowl, we totally annihilated, that area of the United States, had dust storms, crazy. They spent years and years and years figuring out how to turn the tide on that. So our engagement there altered some things. There was a catastrophe that happened from that, a huge movement of the population that happened in consequence to that. And here we have history that we can talk about to our kids. So I think if we can find a balance, please, I think there is one that we can utilize. So I'd like to go.
Thank you very much. Are we then ready to vote on this? With no further discussion, let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, that motion fails 4-1 with Member Klein in favor.
I'd like to make a motion in strand 1. In the title, it says the structures of Earth's atmosphere. Actually, I want to, yes. Sorry, I'm looking down. So both in the title and in meteorology 1.1, where it says structure, to add structure and function. It was originally in the document and someone in public comment requested it be moved. I do think there is not just a structure to the Earth's atmosphere, but there's a function in it too. It's kind of like anatomy and physiology. You've got something and then you have how it interacts or what it does, what its purpose is. And so I would ask that both in the title, so the structure of Earth's, the structure and function of Earth's atmosphere, and then in standard 1.1, construct an explanation describing the properties probably needs to be a comma, structure and function. And it correlates with the, I don't know if it's probably the engineering, I could be wrong, Milo can correct me, language that's used.
Okay, so we're reading the staff note and function was removed. The title was not changed. It was removed as a result of public feedback.
That's my note on there that there was a note on there that it was removed. So the blue's just my comments, but I'd ask that it be put back in because I think there is function, not just the structure of something, not just what it looks like and what it's composed of, but what it actually does.
I have a question. In my amendment to this, I had taken out structure and just put in properties and layers of the atmosphere, because I'm thinking of structures as something tangible, not a gas. Whereas the atmosphere there's layers to it, but structure seems like a word used for something tangible.
Milo, would structure, that's a great question. Does structure incorporate those different layers, the different types of clouds, the different, right? Is that where we're at here?
Yeah, again, the underlying lines here are the cross-cutting concepts. And so the proper thing that we're using is structure and function. And while it's not something of substance, when you do zoom out from the Earth, you can clearly see that structure of the atmosphere as a thin little blue line that is surrounding the whole Earth and does have structure and it does have function.
Thank you.
So this might be a good time to just remind ourselves that the full board, at some point in the past, approved the structure that all of these classes were going to follow in terms of writing the standards. There were certain categories or titles that would be bolded, others would be italicized, others would be, and they were kind of like shared between the sciences. And structure and function is one of those. So when we remove and function, isn't that correct, Milo, that structure and function is still one of those, even though the public wanted and function to be out of there?
Yes,
Well-
you are correct.
So I would just ask that that's the motion, obviously, and that I do believe, because it follows those patterns that we've established, that leaving structure in there does leave it broad enough to articulate those layers and such, and it doesn't limit it either.
Right. Okay, great. So we've got that before us. Everyone, would you please vote?
That motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
All right, I have a motion to amend standard 1.3. To read, obtain, evaluate, and communicate what happens to solar radiation or energy as it moves through the atmosphere and interacts with Earth's surface or matter. And then my addition would be, in fact, is it on the screen? I'm going to switch around, where are we? 1.3. Okay. So where it says examine and identify, we can switch that around. Identify and examine. It makes more sense to identify first. So identify and examine data that supports and counters existing theories around greenhouse effect. Again, just bringing in this balance, the critical thinking, have them look at both sides.
Milo, a question on this. The greenhouse effect is what keeps our temperature consistent, right? I'm just trying to think of some of the effects of the greenhouse. Is that right? We have impacts from that.
Yes, the greenhouse effect is a good thing for life. Like without the greenhouse effect, life on Earth wouldn't exist as we know it. But too much of a good thing can be bad. So a prime example I like to use is talking about Venus, Earth, and Mars. Mars basically has no greenhouse effect. And despite being in a region, what we refer to as the Goldilocks zone, where it should have water on it, it can have water on its surface because it doesn't have a greenhouse effect in its atmosphere. It has no water, and life potentially, if it was there in the past, no longer exists there. Venus is the opposite of that. It has a runaway greenhouse effect that has gone on. And so the temperatures on Venus, even though Venus isn't the closest planet to the solar system, it is the hottest planet in the solar system because of that runaway greenhouse effect, which is if there was any life on Venus at one point, it's been baked away because the water is all gone. It's all been evaporated.
So I'd like to make a substitute motion, and that just at the very end, emphasize the role. And I'm going to leave off the benefits, because I do think there's the greenhouse effect. When you're asking for the role, there's a variety of roles, but emphasize the role of the greenhouse effect on supporting life, so that we have it focused on the very things you're just saying, that it helps to sustain life.
To help us or just to help sustain life? Okay, thank you.
I have on supporting life. I might have switched that around when I was just explaining it, but emphasize the role of the greenhouse effect on supporting life.
Patty, I think we better make a separate amendment.
So you're just unstriking, emphasize the role.
I never struck, yeah, I'm just a substitute motion. Yeah, I guess it would be that. Yep. So it would also change, well, yeah, the motion would be.
So
my substitute motion would be my motion above, but not including and benefits. It would
Okay,
just be-
so I have Board Member Klein's original motion, then we have Board Member Earl's substitute motion. And then it reads.
My substitute, sorry, my substitute motion would be my substitute motion that's above. Does that make sense? It would be that
Gotcha.
motion, not. It'd
Thank
be
you.
substituting that in place of Board Member Klein's, but I don't want and benefits added to it. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
Yep, so this is your substitute motion.
Yes,
Okay, and then we'll get.
taking out and benefits. Sorry about that, if that was.
Oh, you're good.
confusing.
I think I got it, Patty.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, Board Member Earl, could you read yours, please? And
I would be happy to, yes. Obtain, evaluate, and communicate what happens to solar radiation energy as it moves through the atmosphere and interacts with Earth's surface, quotation matter. Emphasize the role of the greenhouse effect on supporting life.
Okay. Any questions? Any further considerations before we vote? Please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Okay, next.
I have a motion to amend 1.4 to read, research and analyze existing theories around the cause and effect of changes in Earth's surface conditions. And I'd switch that, identify and examine around again. Identify and examine data such as humidity, density, temperature, dew point, wind direction, cloud types, and precipitation that supports and counters existing theories.
What, can I just ask what you mean by existing theories?
I've got that in there. Let's see.
And are we asking them to
relating back to the different theories that are out there, climate change being one of them.
Is that, okay, I guess I'm not seeing it as the original one as addressing that. It was focused on humidity, density, temperature, dew point, wind direction, cloud types, and precipitation. And
it's saying cause and effect of changes. So it's asserting that there are causes and effects for the weather that's happening. Causes of the weather and effects. So
Okay,
to me, that's
okay. And
pulling in
another
different theories.
One other item with your amendment, just we're asking to research and analyze, and then we're also then later asking to identify and examine. So we've actually got two.
Yes,
we're-
I just noticed that as I
Yeah.
was reading through that we've got research and analyze. So research and analyze existing theories around cause and effect of changes in Earth's surface conditions, identify and examine data that supports
I
and
guess
counters
what-
existing theories. Yeah, I don't see anything that needs to be
Milo?
changed there.
On this one, because I'm looking at your examples and I'm seeing it as water movement affecting or causing, I'm not seeing the political nature of this. Are you seeing people using this in a more politicized way? Do you see what I'm saying? Is there any way to clarify it if we do? What I'm seeing is temperatures changing, winds changing, that kind of a thing.
That's how I'm seeing it as well. They're really just looking at what might be causing your humidity to go up in a local region, or what might be causing the temperature to decrease. Is that going to?
So are those, and this speaks to Board Member Klein's question here in some ways, is this, are we staying to science, right? Or to those components, or are we opening the door for other things to be interpreted here?
I would have to sit down and look at it and try to analyze more of that to be able to make a good determination.
Okay.
But I do think like what the writing committee like wrote was a good, robust standard that would allow teachers that safety that we're looking for, as well as keeping within the framework, like analyzing, interpreting data, making sure we have those science and engineering practices in there.
I think the way that the standard was written opens the door wide up to allow for the political nature to be brought in, or for the claims to be made that humans are causing or having an effect on the climate. And if so, I simply rewrote it in a way that has students identify both sides of that argument, so that it doesn't become just a one-sided thing where kids are being told that their breathing is out, carbon dioxide is, creating a negative carbon footprint that's creating catastrophic climate change.
I've never heard that. I was thinking about how, the way that I would teach this, or like examples that I would use. And I would say in particular, like when the Great Salt Lake is lower, we have different snow each season, right? So again, I don't feel like this is political, and I would never make any assumptions that any teacher would force any belief on a student, especially our science teachers who really believe in the facts and data and the research and the experiments that are out there. So
I've heard from plenty of teachers, or not from teachers, but from plenty of parents that have had to deal with this with their students, that are very upset by it and feel that they are causing the destruction of the earth, as if humans are a cancer to the earth, and we should never be making our kids feel like that. So again, this doesn't.
All right, let's move ahead to the vote.
It just allows for both sides to be examined. And
Okay, we're now voting on Member Klein's amendment right there for 1.4. Is that correct? Let's
Yes.
do it.
That motion fails 3-2 with Member Klein and Member Green in favor.
Okay, 1.5.
I have a motion to amend 1.5 to read, ask questions to obtain, evaluate, and communicate information about different types of clouds, precipitation, and the process of cloud formation.
Okay. Just to point out, this is another example. You have the bolded words, ask questions, obtain, evaluate, and communicate information is one of those things that crosses across all of the
Yes.
classes.
And that's at the beginning of my
And then
amendment.
scale, proportion, and quantity underlined is another one of those things that is common in all of the sciences that they
Yes.
continue to bring back as part of the format of the standards.
Yes, and I just thought that seemed strange to assign those terms, scale, proportion, and quantity, to clouds, precipitation, and cloud formation, or types of clouds, and the process of cloud formation. Precipitation, it kind of fits with quantity, like inches of rain or whatever, but the rest, it seemed like a stretch to try to stick those three things, types of cloud, formation of clouds, to scale, proportion, and quantity. So like I said, these cross-cutting concepts fit better in some areas than in others. And I don't believe that we should force, a square peg into a round hole just in order to accommodate a cross-cutting concept. If it doesn't truly fit, that seems very unscientific to me.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Milo, is there a there a reason why we want to understand and study the scale, proportion, and quantity of clouds? Seems very specific and intentional.
Yeah, the writing committee was intentional in choosing that because like scale, proportion, and quantity kind of goes back to the idea of taking measurements and looking at how the different sizes of clouds, the different amounts of clouds is going to affect different things like precipitation. So you're going to have one type of cloud that is probably not going to give off much precipitation, while you have another type of cloud that's going to give off a lot of precipitation. And so in the size of that cloud is going to help determine that. So they were very intentional in choosing scale, proportion, and quantity for this standard.
So I would love it if the meteorologist got this one right. I'm just teasing. It seems like this has not quite been right on the head this last year. I think I got 2.5 feet the end of March in my community, and that was a pretty big scale. So
How, can I just
Okay,
ask?
thank you
How,
very much. Any further questions before we vote?
yes, I have a question. How do you measure the size or especially the amount of clouds all around the earth? Like, what's the scientific way to measure the amount of clouds? Or the scale of clouds?
So we're looking at clouds that might be just a small, like you can say they're whether the size of a city or the size of a county or the size of a hurricane. The hurricane system is a very large cloud system. You've got your cirrus type clouds, which are like just wisps. They look like horsehair.
Well, yeah, but how do you measure that? How do you quantify that?
So
Like you could measure the width of a hurricane system. I get that, like, but beyond like that, how do you quantify clouds?
we can give measurements to like distances and size, like volume of them. Like there is estimates that they're making, but they are measurements that we're making with these clouds.
and probably density as well.
Or height, I could see you doing height. But like again, it's a stretch in my opinion that we're trying to tack that to clouds. Sorry.
Patty,
Yeah, that's a celiometer that measures cloud, the density, the size, all of those things that are within clouds. It's a celiometer, CELIO meter.
thank you. All right, any further questions? If not, let's please vote.
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
I have a motion to amend 2.1. And that would be to read, ask questions, analyze data, and compare relationships. And I think that might just be a technical. Well, I guess it's slightly different than a technical. It just made more sense to put an and in there instead of to compare.
Is there a need for that? I don't know, Milo, does that change anything there? It seems like and would work, but I don't know if I'm missing something.
Looking at it, like I think that's fine. Just generally, anytime we have ask questions, we usually phrase it that way. Ask questions to do another of the science and engineering practices that are present. So you'll always see ask questions paired with something else, but whether it's to or and, I think that's the same difference for
Scroll
us.
down a little bit more.
Ask questions, analyze data, and compare the relationships between different weather systems is how I've worded it.
Thank you.
Okay, except for I do think the way they have it, I'm just trying to think this through my mind. Ask questions to analyze data to compare. So ask questions, analyze data, and compare the relationship between so the questions in the analyze without the amendment, the questions in the analyze are gathered to make the comparison, right? And in the other, it'd be ask questions, analyze data, and compare. So I don't know if that's feels significantly different to anyone else. It does a little bit to me. But
So the cross-fitting standard is ask questions to analyze data or not? Or is that two separate ones? Ask questions and analyze data?
It's two separate science and engineering practices, ask questions and analyze data.
Okay. All right. So we have the amendment before us, ask questions to analyze data and compare. All right, we ready to vote? Let's vote.
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
I have
I'd like to make a motion
Yes,
that the committee sends the meteorology standards as amended, including technical formatting and grammatical changes to the board for approval.
I have a substitute. I still have amendments that are brought forward that need to be heard. That's.
do I need, we need
That's
to vote
to
on the
end debate.
motion, right?
Huh?
We need to vote on the motion.
No, it's that motion is out of order. She's calling previous question, and that's not in an attempt to end debate.
Oh, okay.
When there are other motions still waiting.
It's a motion. It can be amended or substitute, but it's a motion that's on the table.
Right.
Okay. Great.
It's in our bylaws. We're not generally supposed to do that in an effort to end debate. It's in the bylaws.
in essence, it would be calling the question. So she'd have to get 4 votes in favor of that in order for that to happen.
Okay. Well, shall we vote and see? Let's do it. Let's vote.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Booth and Rill in favor.
All right, I have a motion to amend 2.2. To read, develop a model which displays different measurements which can be used to predict the weather. So basically, it's taking out the scales, proportion, and quantities, also because for the same reason I mentioned before, it doesn't seem to fit there. And I don't know if there's a different one you could use, but.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
Okay, I have a motion to amend 2.5 to read, use mathematics and computational thinking to design and evaluate a safety plan that, and I have a slight change here, so if you can edit as I go, safety plan that mitigates harm caused by common weather events for a local geographic location. Did you get that in there?
Can you read that one more time? So
Yep. So design and evaluate a safety plan that, and then I would add in mitigates harm caused by common weather events. So it would take out protects against common or I guess common can stay there. Sorry, protects against is what I would be that would be stricken. Okay, so that mitigates harm caused by common weather events for a local geographic location. Define the perceived problem, identify criteria and constraints, analyze available data on proposed solutions, determine an optimal solution, discuss the ethics of possible negative consequences of the solution.
Any questions? Comments?
Hang on just 1 minute. I'm still going through it.
I think you need an S on the end of mitigate. Mitigates harm. Actually, I would put to help mitigate harm instead of that mitigates, to help mitigate harm.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to understand. So we're changing from and evaluate a safety plan that protects against common weather events for a local geographical location. And we're putting in it, evaluate a safety plan to help mitigate harm caused by common weather events for the local, okay.
Yeah, so we can't protect against weather. Well, it's just more clear, like you can't, the first makes it sound like we can put in a plan that stops the weather instead of creating a plan that mitigates harm that common weather events could create or cause.
I thought that maybe that was in there for engineering, the engineering piece.
Well, I mean, the engineering, it's still, that's what our technology and math, that's what we use it for, is to come up with designs that can help mitigate, come up with plans or technology that will help mitigate harm. Again, the weather will happen, but we can use human ingenuity and engineering technology to come up with ways to help mitigate the harm that the weather could cause.
Okay, I'm ready to vote.
All right. Any further discussion from anyone? Please vote.
Okay. That motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and Green in favor.
Okay, I have a motion
Okay.
to amend. Sorry, but strand
That's okay.
3 to read weather systems. And then the introductory paragraph there to read weather systems with their various characteristics and conditions are an ever-present, ever-changing feature of planet Earth.
Will you say that one more time? So we have.
So the title of strand 3 would be weather systems. And then the paragraph for strand 3 would say weather systems with their various characteristics and conditions are an ever-present, ever-changing feature of planet Earth.
One more time, whether I didn't have this
Oh,
one
is
down.
it not, you don't have it
Yeah.
already?
Yeah, so
Is it down below the next one?
It doesn't look.
It is down there below.
Yeah.
So it's captured right below.
okay, so I will.
Yeah, was the motion to change the strand
was-
title?
Sorry, it just looks different. So
Is it just to change the title on this one and then
The number
underneath?
10 is just the title, and then number 11 is where we're dealing with the summary. So it's two separate things here.
yes, the one that starts various climates with that stricken out is what I just read.
Okay.
So yes,
So,
but
so-
various climates is crossed out. It should say weather systems.
so board member
It's just
Klein.
not strucken.
Yeah, board member
stricken like it
Klein,
should be.
I just want to make sure, you started with, change, I thought, and so I apologize if this is wrong, with the strand title. So you're skipping your motion for the strand title and you're moving to, this one, which is the summary for it. Is that correct?
I had them all together in one motion, but it looks like you've broken them out into two.
Okay, so, all right,
Let's go
So-
back to the strand
Yeah.
title and we'll
okay.
do that one and then we'll move on. Did you?
Yeah.
Is
I mean,
that
they
okay?
kind of go together, in my opinion. So, I mean, yeah,
I can put
you
them
can do
together
it
and
however you want.
I can put them together all as one. So I'll pull this up together, so that it's one. I did that before.
Yeah, the
for
title and
another-
summary.
Yep,
together.
yep. Let me just put it all together as one. And Control C, and so it's exactly how you wanted it, and then Control V. So it's weather systems, and then also, so you have two of them right here. So it's title is, I'm just going to put it like this, weather systems.
Other systems. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. I was a little confused right there. Okay, and so you're doing two parts. One is to the title, and so that is,
Title and summary.
and then this one is for the summary. Thank you. Okay,
Okay. Did you want to speak to that anymore, Natalie?
Just keeps it focused on the weather aspect.
Okay.
So I do think the climate does need to be in there as defined as we're looking at it. So I'd like to make a substitute motion.
Please.
It would be system interactions affecting Earth's climates, it'd have to be climates, and weather.
Do weathers. Sorry,
Would
that
it
was
need to
my
be
bad.
weathers? Yeah, it would have to probably be, right, plural on that, climates and weathers. Weathers, that just sounds funny.
Weather doesn't need to be pluralized.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds funny. Climates, I think, needs to be plural though, because it's not one climate. It's a series of different various climates.
Do we have a definition for system? What are we talking about? When we say system interactions.
Mila, do you have some feedback on that one?
Yeah, so systems in science can be very expansive. So we can look at things that are, in terms of the cross-cutting concept, it can be anything just as small as just an atom. So the atom system, or we got the solar system, or we've got whatever we define. Like in physics, we really have to be meticulous about what our system is and what's acting on the system. So in here, in regards to how we are addressing it in this standard, we're on 10. So we're looking, so the as it was originally written by the writing committee, we were looking at that system interaction between society and climate and how they affect one another.
So you're saying the society is one system and the climate is another system.
That
So
would be what we're
this is
looking-
just another way of saying that the society and climate interact, or that
Yeah.
people interact with the climate
Mhm.
or affect the climate, or yes, it's the climate change all over again. I would be opposed to including systems interactions.
Hey, any other discussion? Yes, Patty.
Just trying to make sure I get this appropriate. Right now, we had the main motion by Board Member Klein. And then with that motion, we had a substitute motion. The substitute motion only had the title within. So was that a motion to divide, or was that a motion to only have the title and disregard the second part of the motion for clarity?
Anybody help us?
Jenny?
Sorry, for clarification, then it would, the summary too, I would add my summary to it in place, which would just be technology and regulation can aid in reducing the impacts. And I have weather, the impacts of weather. Although I don't love this idea of regulation, because regulation leans into that very thing that we've been talking about. So I think it would be technology. That's where that balance element needs to be played out.
Milo, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair Booth. So going back to the system interactions, I had spoke about society and climate, but with Board Members Earls relabeling the title, we're looking at the systems are now climate systems and weather systems. So those are the two systems we're looking at with Board Member Earls.
I don't think that makes sense though, because you're saying system interactions affecting Earth's climate and weather. So they're three distinctly different things: system interactions and then climate and weather.
So
otherwise it wouldn't be stated that way.
With that in regards, we're not defining what that third system is. So
which is the problem.
I just want to mention, but I don't need any response, that oftentimes when we have found an industry through innovation and technology, that we found that oftentimes that there are good regulations in place that do help us stay healthier, like how we grow our food or how we remove water from different facilities and where it goes. So I don't need a response. I just want to make sure I mention that.
Emily. Emily, you are muted.
Well, I think strand 3 it kind of gets into this place about, I guess, the political part of it. Not that I want to bring that up again, but here we are, because I do think that there's a lot of conversation and discussion and lessons and curriculums out there that really, toe the line on what maybe our genuine intentions are here as well. And there are people that believe that even having babies is detrimental to the world, and we've given some other examples. So I guess if I were to ask the writing committee, what was their intention with strand 3? Is it specifically between how humanity engages and affects our climate? Can we start there with that question? Then I have a follow-up question. So I guess I had 2. What was the intent of strand 3 and its title? And is it specifically how society, meaning humanity, interacts with climate?
Yes, that is the intention that was going on there, because systems interact with each other, both positively and negatively, both ways. And so looking at those interactions both ways.
Do we have quality checks in place that would allow us to be aware of what kind of belief systems were to be implemented with this conversation? Do we align as a state school board that we do hold the belief that humanity negatively affects the climate and the world? And if we do believe in that, are we okay with regulating and monitoring human movement, or being able to produce like food production in its various forms? Do we hold that belief system?
I think I mentioned this last time, but I have seen our state government for the last decade talking about how we can impact things like drought and our water loss by just today. There was a bill that was passed that they just announced the buyback on grass for turf incentives, so you can get turf. And that's because we know that we are running out of water, and not every year is going to be like this snow year. And so for me, I think it's important for the board to align with our state government that, and I know I mentioned a lot of those resolutions on changing climate that have been passed, and the research that's been done by the governor and through the legislature to talk about how our climate's changing and how humans have affected it and how we can positively and negatively impact it if we don't make changes quickly.
Do we have, and then I think this is where, ethics comes back into this. And I think we had that word that showed, maybe it was in the last one. Do we have a line where teachers are aware of where they should or should not cross into this belief that humanity is detrimental to our climate and to our world? Well, and can you please answer that? And that doesn't have to be you, Sarah. This can be, our writing committee. I'm just genuinely asking, do we, as a state school board, do we have a line where it goes too far?
I actually was thinking more so on the educator perspective and how I do this every day in my class. I don't give them my opinion. I try to teach them to think critically. And in thinking critically, I try to give them all sides and try and let them decide for themselves what they believe. And so if some students are learning about, the history of how, water's been poisoned or something, and then someone else says, well, I think that actually it isn't a bad thing, then that's fine. The students are allowed to believe those things. And I think most teachers are really there to help students think critically, not trying to persuade them one way or the other. So my view is that because we care about teaching our students to think critically, and because educators are not trying to sway them one way or the other, that I don't think that we need to go to such great length to amend these in that way.
Understand that, and I wish, I do know that it seems that we do have very specific things that have happened in the schooling system as of late, and that could be, again, it just because our society just is swaying so much in this debate and argument. I hope that we would be very thoughtful in this standard specifically around this, and so I'm a bit hesitant. I'm not sure really what to do about it, other than, do we hold on the opposite end? Do we hold the belief that humanity are stewards of the earth and caretakers of the earth, and that that we teach ways that we can positively interact with? And I think that aligns with maybe some of the laws that are coming in place, but those have to have checks and balances as well. So, and anyway, I guess that's all I have to say. Thanks.
So I'm wondering, with that being said, I wonder if technology and regulation can aid in preserving human life. So we're articulating what we're doing with the regulation in reducing the impacts of weather, if that language, so that we have the regulation in there, because I think you are right. There are key pieces of regulation, but it's in that preserving human life.
Well, and that whatever we have, it as far as regulations, that the regulations can't go so far as to infringe on our fundamental rights, our constitutional rights.
Okay, so here we are. Which
We're at
substitute?
a substitute motion. and let's get the last of the language and then you can vote one way or the other, but it was changing the title to System Interactions Affecting Earth's Climates and Weather. And then adding on so it substituted completely the summary. It would be the same down to technology and regulation can aid in, and I just would put preserving human life and reducing the impacts of weather. So I don't know, Patty, if you can make that change.
I do like the reducing the impacts of weather. There are wonderful studies that are done just on that. The ability to, for heat and for air conditioning itself, heat in particular, actually saves lives. There's studies about that. So I appreciate that. And I think that's a lot of conversation that's kind of left out of the political part of this strand specifically. So I'm support of that. And I like the aid in preserving human life. I think that also extends into being able to sustain human life, and which means the farming and the water, places to live, shelter, your very first basic carnal needs. That's important. So
I think we can vote. Randy.
Sorry, I just want to say I appreciate and like the addition on aid in preserving human life and reducing the impact of weather, but I can't vote for the earlier terminology that's in there. I would motion. Yeah.
You would what?
I will be voting on this, but if we come back to my other, I would add that later language into my amendment on the previous motion.
So let's take a look at the substitute motion. We have it before us. And if there's no further discussion, let's vote.
That motion passes 3-2 with member Booth and member Klein opposed.
All right. So next.
right.
I'd like to
All right.
make a motion on the 3.1 that to change, cross out global and just put Earth's various climate systems.
Is that substantially
Okay.
different?
Any questions about that? Seeing none, let's vote.
I'm sorry, I just need 1 second.
I would.
I'm ready.
That motion passes 4-1 with member Klein opposed.
Okay.
All right, I would make a motion on 3.1 to strike distribution of land and water.
Fair. Just a question. So 3.1 just passed. Is this also for 3.1?
Yes.
So would that have been a substitute motion? Or do we?
I would have amended her motion, but they already called the vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So can you, I think,
It would just be.
yeah, Brian, I think that it would need to have someone call it back that was on the, but if the rules are relaxed, I think that that would be up to you as a committee.
let's go back. I mean, I would be in favor of going back to Natalie.
I'm fine with that. Go ahead and make your motion.
Okay, I move to amend 3.1 to strike distribution of land and water.
Could I ask what that means? What's the reference there for that?
It's right there in the standard on the left column.
Yeah, what did the writing committee mean by that?
So
It's just for clarity.
yes, I can answer that, Board Member Green. So the amount of land and the amount of water in a region can affect the climate as well. So like for regions that are by an ocean, like that, them being by an ocean does make their climate more temperate. And that's why California has the temperate climate that it does, is because of the ocean that it's right by. Whereas here in Utah, we're at the same latitude as San Francisco, but our climate here has much more extremes than San Francisco does. So it's just pointing out that the amount of water and land, the distribution of water and land in a region can affect that climate of that area.
I'm not sure distribution means, but what you just described.
I guess my clarity there, Milo, was about the word distribution. I'm wondering, does that a distribution from governments, distribution from cities to their citizens? Who is the distributor of the land and water in this? Or is it just what you kind of said, how the land and water in ratios are distributed throughout a specific geographical location?
Yeah, it's that ratio of land to water. So the distribution is already present there. There's not a government that's distributing any land and water to people here or to the climate itself. So it's what the distribution that already exists of land and water.
Okay, thank you.
So it would probably be more accurate to say ratio of land and water in a geographical area. And I'm fine amending it to that. So, so it would read to various climatic, let's see. Yeah, just ratio of land and water.
Okay. Ratio of land and water. Any further discussion? Okay, let's vote.
That motion passes 3-2 with members Booth and Rill opposed.
Chair.
Patty,
Chair. Now, those two that both passed have opposing language, so we would need to combine the two together.
How
Okay.
did they have opposing language? I'm just,
So you have for Earths and
so it would be, probably need to be combined together. So is that
Yes,
you need a
yes,
motion to
yeah.
combine them? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
yeah, and so if we were to do that,
Okay.
what we would be doing is adding explanations for Earths and getting it in there, and then I think the two of them would be the same. I mean, then it would be.
Yeah, I'd like
combined.
to make a motion that we combine the two motions into one. Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
okay, there's a motion. Any discussion? If not, let's vote.
Okay,
That
I'd
motion passes 3-2 with member Earl and member Rill opposed.
Member Klein, I think.
Yeah, I'm opposed.
I'd like to make a-
Klein and Rill opposed. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion on 3.2. And it would add in, examples could include weather disturbances, cataclysmic earth processes, and then strike air pollution. Air pollution falls under air quality, which would incorporate both the pollutions as other other elements associated with that. So it doesn't strike that out. But we add in the other items that we have.
I would motion to substitute
Okay,
with my motion is on the screen there. So it would read, identify common weather patterns within reportable history, including natural disasters. Analyze data, it should say data, I think it says data to construct a hypothesis for the patterns identified. Research, analyze, and argue existing theories.
okay, we have a motion to substitute from Board Member Klein. Any discussion or question about that? Seeing none, let's vote.
Member Green, that motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and member Green in favor.
Okay, thank you. We're back to Member Earls.
You want me to read it again?
Yes,
Can I
please.
ask a question? What do you mean by cataclysmic earth processes?
That would be, so catastrophe kind of things. It could be a like a blizzard or a
Tsunami.
yeah, tsunami.
Natural catastrophes or
Well, look up
cataclysmic weather
event.
events or earth processes just sounds odd to me. Let me just call it what it is, like weather events or natural disasters or.
Well, I think it is processes of the earth, so.
Just really ambiguous. I would move to amend to say just natural disasters.
Okay, ready to vote on that? Everyone vote, please.
That motion fails 3-2 with member Booth and Real opposed. Or
Wait, you mean
we
it
do that
passes?
again, please?
No, it did,
Yeah,
no.
there we go. That motion fails 3-2 with member Klein and member Green in favor.
Okay, now,
Okay, so back to the original motion, engage in argument from evidence to identify the patterns that exist in the relationship between weather, climate, society. Examples could include weather disturbances, cataclysmic earth processes, urban heat island, smog formation, striking air pollution and putting air quality where air quality is already there. Stratospheric ozone. Did I say that right? So, okay.
okay, that's it. Seeing no discussion, please vote.
That motion passes 3-2 with member Booth and member Klein opposed.
All right, I'd like to amend 3.3 to read, obtain, evaluate, and communicate information about weather patterns, climate conditions, and their possible effects on economic, social, health, physical and emotional, political, and ecological systems. Construct a hypothesis and then create an experiment to test the hypothesis. Look for any weaknesses found in the evidence.
Right,
I switched the wording around a little bit in that last sentence. Look for any weaknesses found in the evidence.
okay. Any discussion or question?
Yeah, just wait just a minute. Let me read through it.
Okay, I'd just like everyone to note that we are at 8 o'clock.
We're 2 motions away.
I think we're a few more than that, actually. So. Hypothesis and then create an experiment to test the hypothesis. Look for anything that is found in the evidence. Okay.
I wanted to just say again that there can be effects that happen based on individual and society. If we, choose to divert water into the Great Salt Lake or divert water into agriculture, if we choose to, throw our trash out the window like we used to, or put it in recycling, like there are the way that this is written originally, I think was it's not, it doesn't feel leading, and it feels like they are doing an analysis in that way to understand all of those different positive and negative effects we can have.
Okay. Are we ready to vote? Please vote.
That motion fails 4-1 with member Klein in favor.
I would like to amend 3.4 to read plan and carry out an investigation to determine the natural changes in weather. Investigate the effects of carbon dioxide on plant growth, record findings, repeat experiment to test if original results are consistent and replicable or replicatable, whatever the appropriate word is.
I'd like to make a substitute motion that states plan and carry out an investigation to determine the natural and human caused factors that could produce, I'm losing it. Sorry, it skipped on me. Factors that could produce changes in Earth's climate systems. Emphasize, I'm not going to get this name right. So Milankovitch, if I'm saying that right, if not, Milo, you can correct me. And ENSO cycles. Examples could include greenhouse gases and changes in physical geography.
Okay, any questions?
I just do want to, and I'm not going to get the name right again, but when I looked up the emphasis on the Milankovitch, whatever his name is, that there is some fascinating things around that, including the movement of the spinning of the earth and the tilt of it, and how it's that movement and that how it fluctuates that helps to impact various climates and various weather systems on the earth. So anyways, I appreciate them having that in there, because I do think that's part of that key research and understanding. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
That motion passes 4-1 with member Klein opposed.
I'd like to motion to strike standard 3.5.
Okay,
I'd like to make a substitute motion
thank you.
that we introduce into this one, evaluate processes, proposed designed solutions intended to reduce the impacts of cataclysmic earth processes, define the problem, identify criteria and constraints, analyze available data on proposed solutions, and determine an optimal solution. And I think this is, I think this is key, that we're looking at these great impacts. And especially when we're talking about, we're looking at significant flooding right now, right? And we know, I was just listening to the news today, we know more because of previous floods of how to respond and where it's going to come off the mountains. And it was interesting to listen, even that it's melting underneath, the water is melting underneath in some areas and not on top. There were interesting things that we've learned from research and from history to prevent some of the consequences that have happened previously. The other thing I think is that even in engineering designs for certain climates, for various earth processes, that we can better engineer homes or businesses or buildings in order to withstand some of the cataclysmic earth processes. So.
May I just ask a question? I know that we.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wondered if we could, at a minimum, have a definition of cataclysmic earth processes included somewhere. Otherwise, I would motion to amend for it to say natural disasters. I make a motion to amend for it to read natural disasters instead of cataclysmic earth processes.
Okay.
Well, just in reading from the dictionary, relating to or denoting a violent natural event. So that's what the definition is of cataclysmic. And I think we've got to keep, I would recommend we kept the language the same with what we used above, so it's consistent.
Well, would there be anything wrong with using changing climate instead of climate change? Because everybody sees that there is a changing climate. And that's really what these meteorologists are wanting to talk about.
Well, if we're going to talk definitions here, I just was looking at natural disasters include all geophysical, meteorological, climate events, including earthquakes, volcanic cavity, landslides, drought, wildfire, storms, etc. So
it's a term that everybody understands.
So in theory, it would seem that natural disasters might encompass more of all, like the full scope of meteorology. And this, if we're going to make a change, I probably would personally support the natural disasters more. And even some examples in South America, they're coming up with a new way to build their homes that are able to withstand the natural disasters there. So instead of everything being wiped away in this storm, they create the foundation of the home with different materials that are, I guess, green is what you would say. And it's working. It means when these storms come, that all of the village won't be completely leveled. So there's ingenuity there and helping humanity thrive, while also acknowledging the reality that natural disasters are definitely a part of our world. So I would probably argue.
All right, go ahead.
You can finish, Emily. Oh, okay. Well, I was just thinking, so I want to make sure when I'm rereading these. So I like Member Earl's amendment. I'm fine with, I'm just wondering if the purpose of this standard, this piece, is to talk about, because we talk about weather and weather patterns, but then there's also the climate of an area. And does well, yeah, I can't say it either. Does that include just weather, but also climate? Is there a way? I want to make sure that we're covering weather patterns and weather instances, but also climates and different climate situations is the best word I can think of right now. So I don't know the answer to that, because this is I learned this word when I saw the amendment for the first time, but now I'm trying to look at it more on the bigger picture of the weather pieces of this course versus the climate pieces of this course.
So can you ask your question one more time?
Well, I mean,
Understand
I
what
would
you're
obviously,
asking.
I would obviously prefer changing climate of changing climates. But cataclysmistic, whatever, is something that I'm wondering is more weather related and not as climate related. And that's what I'm wondering. I don't know if Milo has an answer to that, but because I don't have the answer to it. I'm just curious.
Milo, are you there?
Milo's internet. Oh, there he is. Okay,
Yes, I am here.
not back. Thanks.
So I would add, like, what would be examples of cataclysmic earth processes that we're thinking about? For me personally, cataclysmic earth processes are things that are end of the world almost type of things. We got a meteor hitting the earth, we get a volcano that explodes, we get these big events that occur, which definitely are going to have a immediate impact on climate in a region that's there. And I believe the intent of the standards writing committee here was more looking at these smaller things of changes in climate that happen over time, and how can we help have solutions to help reduce those smaller changes of climate.
What I find interesting too about this is that climate change and the politicized use of the word is almost cataclysmic in nature. So for me, I feel like cataclysm and climate change in a political way it's presented go hand in hand. So I guess I'm kind of back to natural disasters as acknowledging what we do have to deal with, on Earth. But I also recognize that how we engage in it, we have to be aware of that as well. So.
Okay, any further questions? All right, we have a substitute motion. Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Okay. Would someone read what it is that we're voting on?
I can read that.
Thank you.
So I would, to amend 3.5 to read, evaluate proposed design solutions intended to reduce the impacts of natural disasters, define the problem, identify criteria and constraints, analyze available data on proposed solutions, and determine an optimal solution.
Okay. Please vote.
Member Real. That motion passes 3-2 with member Booth and Real opposed.
If I just would recommend, if we're changing it here, that we probably need to make sure it aligns up above so it doesn't counter, just because and I'm trying to think where we had it. Was it in the introduction?
So you need to bring that back?
Yeah, I think we need to, because you can't have, I think it ends up being competing. Am I right in saying that? Jennifer, you're the one following us here.
I think it'd be helpful to just keep it consistent. It helps the teachers realize it's the same thing we're talking about. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I don't remember which one that's.
It's right here on 3.2.
3.2. I just recommend that we align those. So.
Okay.
So let's go right here and let's see.
We can either make a motion to bring it back if that's okay, or
No,
if
we
the
can,
committee-
let me add it right here.
Does it need a motion to bring it back?
Couldn't you just direct staff to make that change as a technical change?
If that's what the body wants, or we need to vote on it. I don't know if member Real would want us to vote on it. Do you want us to vote on that?
Nope, I'm okay with that, voting on.
Okay, so then I would make a motion, if that can be considered a technical change, so it aligns, that the committee sends the meteorology standards as amended, including technical, formatting, and grammatical changes to the board for approval.
Hey, everyone, please vote.
That motion passes unanimously.
Right. Thank you very much. Have we finished the business of this meeting?
Fair. If I may, and I don't know if you were going to do this or not, but for anyone who is watching or for any board member who hasn't checked their email, within the last few hours, I'm not sure when it went out, just what will be happening in board meeting and then on the next day. So would you like for me to review that, or would you like to review that?
Why don't you go ahead?
Okay, so on board meeting, it will be that during board meeting, there will be the standards and assessment piece. And whatever time we're at, it will go till I think 4:30. Is that correct, Vice Chair Earl? And then at 4:30, it will be a hard stop for executive session and all of the business that needs to be conducted after that. When that is complete, then standards and assessment will go on. They've approved extending that until 9 p.m. So there are 10 total standards for courses that standards have been sent forward to the full board for approval. It'll be split into 2 parts. And then there will not be a committee meeting on Friday morning for standards and assessment, but the public is welcome to go to any of the other committees, law and licensing and finance and operations.
Wonderful.
I just have a question. I know there was a email that went out. It sounded like were requiring us to submit any amendments by 9 o'clock tomorrow. But I think we've had this conversation before that, a request would have been the better choice of words, since we can always bring forth amendments.
And I do think that was changed, and so it should not have said required. It should have said may, or a word like that. So I apologize if that went out as
please. It said please adhere to this
okay
email or whatever.
Yeah, and I think on the bullet point it said may or something. Yeah, so so the other part of that is that's for it to be included on the motions template, and they can send them forward. So that was the point of clarifications, for it to be included on the template when things come in quickly. So if it's not included on the template, it could be sent in at a different time, but that wouldn't be included on the template because staff doesn't have the manpower to do it in time. We can't check. Yeah, so that was the difference between the two. Okay.
I figured as much. Just wanted to clarify that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you.
Thank you.
Thanks particularly to staff for your extra efforts and everyone's attendance and cooperation today. Thank you. Thank you. And we will see you very soon.